Hi, everyone. This is Rose Horowitz. I'm a Pulitzer-nominated journalist and the founder of Women to Follow. I'm very honored to have you join me today. I have a guest joining us from Kyiv in Ukraine, and one from is joining us from Eastern Europe. It's a very special day in many religions. It's Easter. And it's Passover, and we're in the month of the holiday of Ramadan. I was at a Seder last night where we talked about the Jews' exodus from Egypt and the Jews' fight for oppression, against oppression. And I think that that resonates with us today, as we will talk about our two young guests who are fighting for Ukrainians' freedom. So we're witnessing such unimaginable horror in Ukraine. It continues every day. I think we're at day 53 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And we're witnessing unbelievable destruction and horror. And it's important, even though it's hard to talk about, it's important that we do, so that we're all aware of it, and we are more apt to support the people of Ukraine who are fighting for their freedom when Russia invaded the country on February 24th. I want to thank my terrific producer, Steffen Kaplan. You can find him at Spin It Social. And I want to thank my sponsor, Women in Technology International. And I'd like to bring on my guests, Julia Timoshenko. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
And Maria Buchelnikova. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Hi. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm very honored to have both of you. And I'll just start with a general question. Julia, tell us where you are and how you're doing.
Well, I am in Kyiv, Ukraine, in the capital, in my apartment, actually. I came here to visit for a few days because I have been displaced to the Western Ukraine since the war started. And it's very hard to respond to a question, how are you these days? I'm very privileged to be alive and to be well physically and have all of my family and relatives and friends also in the same state, but I'm also going through a lot of emotions, and obviously my heart really hurts for my country. So it's everything I want to say when I say to people that I'm okay.
Okay. And Maria, how are you today? And
thank you so much to having us here in your show. Actually, it's amazing that a lot of people from abroad, not only Ukrainians, try to make this topic, to talk about Ukraine widely. It's very important actually for us, and it's very supportive, really, because we understand that we're not alone in all this horrible situation. Well, I maybe can say the same thing as Julia already said, because I think that a lot of Ukrainians feel the same way right now. But also I can say that I'm happy that all my family and close friends and relatives and all my colleagues are safe right now, because it doesn't matter where you are, or in Ukraine or maybe abroad. It's very important how your friends and family are, actually, because even if you're safe, it doesn't matter for you when your family, for example, in war zone, actually, or near the battlefield. So yeah, for us it's very important if they safe. So it means that we are okay or not that bad. So yeah, we are privileged to be safe right now, and most or less, just, but it's really safe situation.
Yes. So the common phrase we say, "How are you?" has a whole new meaning at a time of war, and the
Definitely.
"you" is expands very much.
Yeah. You know, we have this joke when we asked how we are, just a lot of people answered, we're holding on. And because, yeah, it's like you're maybe some old cupboard or something like that, which is holding on the wall of broken house. Yeah, maybe you saw this picture
Yeah.
of this cupboard on somebody's kitchen. So yeah, we're like, all of us are like this cupboard actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me start with Julia. So tell us why you where were you when war broke out on when Russia invaded on February 24th, and um, were you in Kyiv then?
I was in Kiev. I was actually in this apartment that I am right now. I have I was sleeping as most of Ukrainians. I went to sleep the night before around 2 a.m. just because I've been falling asleep for I think a month and a half around 2 3 a.m. because of the anxiety about all the news and reports coming in about the possibility of the invasion. And while I was really anxious about it, I still never could believe that it will actually happen. I was like, even joking with my friends from work that I don't want to pack my emergency bag because packing an emergency bag feels like recognizing that you know that this will happen. And then on the morning of 24th, I really regretted that I didn't have my emergency bag packed. But I was in this apartment, I was sleeping. As I said, I went to sleep at 3 a.m. And usually when I do that, it's really hard to wake up in the morning, and I sleep through like almost till like 10 if I don't have to go to work. But I opened my eyes at 5 a.m. very much unprompted, as at least that's how I thought back then. And I was really wondering like why did I open my eyes and sort of like just was already staring at the ceiling. What happened? And I looked at the my phone that it's like almost exactly 5 a.m. And I started getting messages actually from my friends from abroad, from the United States, who already started seeing all the reports and coverage on that the invasion has already started. And when they messaged me saying, God, I hope you're safe, we pray for you, it has started, I still was denying it because I looked at the Ukrainian media, and none of the Ukrainian media has said anything yet, I guess because everybody was still in the state of total shock and, woken up by the explosions. And I didn't believe that it's actually happening until I heard the first explosion outside my window. And I felt like, oh, that doesn't sound like a firework. And then another one and another one. And then I heard the sound of a fighter jet flying above. And that's when it sort of dawned on me that this is real. My worst nightmare is here.
Oh, so it's almost like you had to be told, even though you knew what you were hearing, but you didn't believe it yet.
No, yeah, it's incredibly hard to believe. The first two, I think it's still like the entire day, like the first day, it was constantly kind of realizing and understanding that this is real and you're not dreaming, because it did feel like you're just dreaming and not able to wake yourself up from this nightmare and horror. So, but yes, being told by the friends, actually, a lot of my friends who have friends from abroad, they were first notified by their foreign friends, because I guess the reports in the Western media, who have been paying very close attention to Ukraine, came out first before the Ukrainian government said anything. And I mean, the difference is like 30 minutes. I think in 30 minutes, I started getting reports from Ukrainian media, but still, those 30 minutes were very critical, and I just had a complete panic attack. I couldn't do anything. I knew that I had to pack, and I knew that I had to come up with some sort of plan, but it just was total kind of like hysteric moment for me, and I don't think I've ever felt anything like that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Maria, can you tell us, were you in Ukraine at that moment, or at 5 a.m. on the 24th, or were you outside the country?
It was a very weird coincidence, but just the day before the full-scale invasion, I was abroad. Actually, I came for just a vacation to work in the Cyprus, just like to be on to get more sunny days, and just to work with my partner. So yeah, we came to Cyprus. Everything was fine. We fall asleep, and yeah, the next day, I. I heard from him. He didn't want me to awake, because he was awake by his little brother. He got the message from him that the war has begun, and he has never had never sleep like again there this night. And he watched all this news, tried to write to all our friends and relatives and families. But yeah, I was awake at 10 a.m. I guess, or something like that. So yeah, he told me that okay, Russia bombed Kiev, but don't worry, because our family are safe right now. I spoke to them, everything is fine, please don't worry. But all these words, don't worry, they're safe, it was super impossible to believe, actually, because like we've been told that it can happen, but how? Yeah, it was absolutely impossible to believe, actually. And I guess that I started to believe that the actual war right now, that Russia is bombing our cities. I don't remember, but I guess it was like after the whole week, I guess, or something like that, because it was super impossible. Even like I've discussed a lot with my friend who is living and working abroad. Also, he read all the West media articles about Russian invasion, and that it could be possible soon. We had this huge discussion that, come on, it's not impossible. They're not that crazy to bomb Kiev. Come on, like, could you believe this? It's just like some panicking stuff. Media do this all the time, and like they did the same last year. Come on. But he was absolutely right, actually, for all this thing. And yeah, of course, it was absolutely horrible. And I don't know how, but all of our family and our parents, they told us they're super lucky and they're happy that we are not in Ukraine this time, that time. But for us, it was like, come on, the only place we should be is just only in our city to help, to volunteer. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess it's very hard to not be there, as it is to be in the country, for people.
Yeah. There is no comfortable place, I guess, because those people who are displaced, they like they run away from the war zone, but it's not their home right now. Of course, they're in a safe place, but it's not their home. And for all those people who I don't know, who gone abroad, or it's also the safe place, of course, the safest place right now. But still, if you're not there, so it means that something is wrong. So like it's not gonna be comfortable for you anyway.
Yeah,
I agree.
And are you watching the news all the time and speaking to friends?
Right now, not actually. Yeah, first weeks, of course. I think that I think that I recharge my mobile phone like 3 times a day. Because like all these social media messages, we have to read the news, asking our friends and families how they are, how can we help. And also it was a lot of A lot of different random coordination to help somebody, to find somebody, to help with some context, to help context, to help with maybe some apartments, maybe drive or something like that, because it was a total chaos. And this is why I was not in Ukraine, so I had the privilege to help them to gather all the information and just to pass it and to coordinate these people. But yeah, of course, we were like every day we tried to communicate, but of course there were some days without any communication, without connection because of these bombing Ukrainian cities, especially on north part, because there are my grandparents in Chernihiv, and the eastern part. I also have a lot of friends from there, so it was impossible even to contact them for some time. So yeah, of course, right now it's still horrible and it's still shocking, but it's kind of routine right now. So I try to do some pause, to close my laptop and to not to touch my phone just for, I don't know, for time that when I have lunch, for example, or when I have dinner. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And let me ask you, Julia, how did you make a plan, and how soon were you able to leave Kyiv?
Well, it was very much on the spot. Like I always knew that the first thing would be like probably going to the Western Ukraine, but I actually thought that it's gonna be the best to get there by car. Like that was my idea before. But then I realized that the roads were very packed because everybody was trying to get out of the city. I kind of like by the evening of the first day, I found out that trains are operating as evacuation basically rights for everybody in need and everybody who wants to leave. And I think we got to give it up to our train workers and the workers of the railway company, because some of them worked 24 hours without getting any sleep and rest, because they were constantly running these evacuation trains from the city. And I remember that it was back in the day. I left on the second day, on the 25th. And back then, the entire world was predicting that Kiev is going to fall on the third day. And even me leaving, trying to get to the train station, we had to basically pay almost like 10 times more for an Uber, just so they come, because most of the taxi drivers wouldn't want to like drive and put themselves in risk. So we paid like 1,000 hryvnia for a cab ride that is normally like 200 or maybe less. And when arriving to our apartment, and that's also after we spent the night in the bomb shelter in the basement of our building, because there were already missiles being fired on this side of Kiev, because I live on the east side in the left bank. And when arriving, the taxi driver said, "Get in fast, because there are already tanks in the city." Russian tanks already actually entered the city on the second day, but they were kicked out later. But obviously, when you hear that they are so close, they're literally in another part of the city, it's just terrifying, and it's very hard to describe. But I think I was functioning on a lot of adrenaline. On only two, I only had 2 hours of sleep, so those going to bed at 3 on the 24th and waking up at 5 a.m. were just my only hours of rest during the first 2 days of the war. Just because, I mean, we couldn't sleep in the bomb shelter, and also emotionally, you just couldn't fall asleep, because you, as Maria said, you were just glued to the phone, looking at the news, trying to understand what are the advances of the Russian army and how dangerous it is, like with every second. So we were able to get on the train. The train station was packed, obviously, but not like terribly. It was still manageable. The train was very packed though, and we just we're lucky to start moving. And as we were starting moving again, we heard fighter jets flying. And every time you hear a fighter jet, because you can't identify it, whether it's like our fighter jet or is it the Russian enemy, it's really terrifying because you actually think that, well, what if right now something's going to fly at you and just, stop everything. So we were able to get to my friend's family house in the western part of Ukraine. And although we were very exhausted, I still didn't want to go to sleep because I wanted to sort of follow and see how the Battle of Kiev is going and whether Kiev is just going to stand. I remember specifically falling asleep already because I was so exhausted, but praying to myself that I hope to wake up and see that Kiev is still standing and everything is like we're still got our capital and free from the occupants. So that was definitely a journey and the day that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Thank you. And were you able to be in touch with your family and to check in with them?
Yes, back then, the Russian army entered first from the northwest side of the city, and my family is in the village in the very east of the city. So back then, actually, there was a conversation from my dad that, well, if I'm not able to leave west on the train, I can just somehow get out of the city and get home because back then we thought that the city is the main target and that the Russians will be in the city in like either a few hours or in a few days. We didn't know that they're going to try to encircle it and come from both sides. But I felt still that having a home or like a place to stay in the east side, very close to the Chernihiv and to actually the way that goes from Chernihiv to Kiev, is also kind of dangerous because I thought that if they try to attack from the east as well and come to the capital from the east, like my village is going to be on the way, which I was right about because I left Kiev on February 25th, and my home village where my dad and grandparents are staying was occupied on March 7th. So they actually
And
spent.
is that something that you wrote about? I think on Instagram. Where was that? Where your grandparents are?
Yes, yes, yes. That's where my grandparents
Mm,
are. I'm constantly talking about it on
mm,
Instagram, and
yes.
luckily now it's liberated and my family is okay. But those 3 weeks of them being under occupation, and especially the first day of the Russian army entering and just bombing the village from the artillery, like there's no strategic military targets or nothing in an old granny's house, but they were shooting. And I first heard it from my family, but then after it was liberated and I visited yesterday, I saw it with my own eyes. I saw just holes in the houses that indicate that they were just shooting at civilian house, kind of like point blank through. Just all the destruction is completely disheartening and terrible to watch. 4 people actually died from the shellings in our home village, and just many others were also tortured in the villages nearby. But fortunately, that the Russians didn't actually stay for very, very long. They sort of passed by and were still coming back to loot and steal food. But again, as I'm saying, it feels very incredibly lucky to have your family and friends okay after all of that.
I think you wrote that your grandfather was shot at but wasn't hit. Is that?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He sort of violated all the safety advice that he was given. He heard that there is like fires outside, and he decided to go check it out. Well, I guess it's because sometimes my grandfather is really naive and he thinks that there's like no danger, despite even like having Russian tanks like a kilometer away. And he went outside his house to like look, and he actually stood kind of like on the hill, which was a huge mistake. And he saw a tank turning his way, and the machine gun from a tank just fired at the area where he was standing, and he wasn't hit, but literally the house and the roof behind him was, which indicates that they were shooting directly at him.
Thank you. We're sharing some the photos that you put up on Instagram and talking about this. And this was the church. This is a church in that village,
Yes.
the town.
Yes.
Hmm. And I think you put up is that your grandfather?
Yes. Yes. That's my grandfather. Exactly.
Hmm.
That's my
And
grandmother.
is that your?
Yeah. So actually, this is very interesting because so now that I know the details, my grandfather, the way he's like standing, if you see, it's an old cellar on the right, and
Mhm.
when he was fired at, he was standing on the top of that hill behind the cellar,
Okay.
um,
Uh-huh.
and that. And then towards the left there is a house, but it's sort of like cropped out from the picture. So just somehow, luckily, he didn't get hurt. But that's the exact place where he was standing when, yeah, they fired at him.
And were any of their friends killed in this occupation?
None of the people that were I was close to.
Hmm.
Still a terrible tragedy, just the loss. Most people, I think, three people died from the shellings,
Hmm.
and one person was actually shot from a gun. Because again, a woman, I think it was an old woman as well. She exited her yard as they were passing by on the vehicles, and they just shot her without, I don't even know how to explain it. But
Yeah.
that's really definitely hard to talk about it. But yeah, in the villages nearby, there are even more crimes like this.
And I think maybe I described you in some of the cards I put up as you're 22 and
Sorry, I
you're a
lost you for
graduate.
a second. If you could repeat that, please.
Oh yes, you're a graduate of NYU Abu Dhabi. Do you hear me?
Unfortunately, I cannot hear you. Maybe
All right.
let's move to
You want
Maria, and
to?
I'll exit and come
Okay.
back.
Let me ask
If that's
Maria something,
possible.
and you'll try to fix it. Okay. Maria, hi.
Yeah.
Um, tell us about the Ukrainian explainers that you've been part of, and what is that about?
Well, yeah, actually, as I already told, that the first weeks of the full-scale invasion was absolutely chaos, because all of us wanted to help, but all these different kind of events and different kind of coordination requests and so on. When you have just contact and you have to coordinate people, it was very difficult without any sleep and rest. But after that, we understand that okay, we can help, but let's do it in the way that we can do the best for us as a all of us have a career, have some professional skills. So yeah, we should do it by this way that we can. So yeah, we understand that the best thing that we actually know here, we know all this Ukrainian context, social context, political context, and cultural context about this war. Relationships between Ukraine and Russia, and we understood that it's super actually hard to explain to different people who are not from Ukraine. And a lot of them, because of all this huge Russian propaganda, which was spread for years, actually for 10 and maybe 20, maybe 30 years, this is why a lot of people in Western countries actually retranslate these propaganda narratives. Mm, do you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. You are.
Yeah. They spread all this propaganda narrative. So we should, as a journalist, as a sociologist, because I also have a sociology education. Yeah, let's explain it to other people in English. What is going on here, actually, to fight this propaganda? So me and my partner, who is also a sociologist, and right now he's a copywriter, and my very, very close friend who is a designer. So we like, okay, we have an idea, how can we do it? And all of this, it was like very, very, very fast and very creative process. So yeah, we just choose the format and brainstormed the topics that we should take for the first place, and we just try to explain it, to do this super short and very informative format. Yeah. But actually, as for me, I never was a social media lover, or I never wanted to be a blogger or an influencer. Actually, I really respect and love slow media format, actually. And this is why we had a podcast before the war about climate crisis and Anthropocene. But after that, we understood that, okay, social media actually is the best way you can spread very fast the information to as much people as you can, as your social media can do it. So yeah, we started to do it, and actually the whole process was very, very easy and fast for us. And then we decided, okay, we have these cards, let's do how people can share it on the easiest way. Okay, we should make a website. Come on, let's do the website. And our great friend just made the website for us. She did it like just super, super fast. So yeah, we have these cards that you can download and share. And also there are a few translation to different languages. And actually, first of all, we didn't plan to make it on different languages except English, but we started to have these messages from other people from all over the world who just tried to help us, and they asked us if they can translate. They wanted to translate, so this is gonna be their help for us. So this is actually right now we have a translation even from Japan, which was super surprising for me and very nice. They wrote to us and say like, come on, we want to translate your cards, and then we say, wow, cool, come on, let's do this. So yeah, it's just the gathering of absolutely amazing and wonderful people who just helped us, actually.
And I see here. Oh, this is from
This is
Julia.
from mine. Yeah, like one of my friends as well in Japan. She has like a media.
Awesome.
That she translated one of my posts to Japanese as well, and I feel like for us being so far from that part of the world, it's really fascinating when people volunteer to do this kind of great act to show support.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Maria, are you like officially translated in any languages, or this is a process that you're still working on?
Right now, I think that we have the translation of all the cards that are already made. We have Spanish translation, I guess, like all of these cards. And right now it's the process to translate them on German language and on, I don't remember, Portuguese. And also we requested to do it on Italian, I guess. But yeah, I guess it's Spanish and German. We had a lot of people who, they came to us and asked to help. Try to help, and we sent them some text, and after that they disappear. But it's absolutely okay because it's just a volunteer, and we cannot ask them or to push them or something like that. But yeah, it's just I think that we should to make it like a normal process to build this process of translation. But right now it's a little bit chaotic, actually, because the main problem actually it's not about translation, I guess. It's about the how to distribute these cards, because on English, okay, we know the audience, and it's very easy to share it because a lot of people in the world know English. But for example, how to share Spanish cards to people who are who knows Spanish language. I don't know actually, because I don't know Spanish media, and I don't know a lot of people from Spanish language countries. But still, I guess that we should cooperate maybe with some influencers or some media. I don't know actually. I don't know yet, because as I already told, this is a process that we should work on a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're starting from the ground up, and you'll see where it goes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess you maybe the translators will know people in their own countries, and how, who to share it, how to share it.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's read one of them. If we can put one of them on the screen again, maybe one of them from here. Do you want to read this to us? This first one on the.
Yeah, it's the cards about rearguard and how it works in Ukraine. Yeah, it's about a few weeks ago we got this message from some American guy who told us that he volunteered Ukraine to get some humanitarian stuff or some military stuff, and to give it to Ukrainian people through all this chain from USA. And we understood that a lot of people do not know how actually a Ukrainian rearguard works. Because the thing is that if you try to imagine the war, so maybe you imagine some soldiers, some military attack, some, I don't know, something military process. But the thing is that in Ukraine, almost everybody is fighting, and actually, even me and Yulia were also fighters. Still, we're not on battlefield, yeah, the real one, but we are on informative battlefield. So yeah, we put all our, like, as I already told you, what we can do better. So we will do it to help. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting event, I guess, for Ukraine, that like a lot of people, not only soldiers or not only people from, I don't know, doctors maybe, or some, like, you imagine some very important professionals, yeah, from like doctors, police, maybe soldiers, but a lot of people who are not in this work also help. Like they do impossible thing actually. Yeah.
So very
Yeah.
much from the ground up, and this we're seeing this in this war. I mean, I think that the president Zelensky, in going and appearing before, on Zoom, and socially, the way he's using his phone, and appearing on social media, is spreading the word about what's happening in a way that is unusual, is new, as we watch this unfold. And I think that message is being also from the ground up, as well as from the top down, but from the ground up, we're hearing this swell of what's really happening, which helps people to understand at all levels of society. This is happening at all levels of society, and I think it leads to greater understanding of what's happening, and more support. I think it translates into more support for Ukraine and its cause.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess that's a question I have for Julia too. When you started writing on Instagram, I think you became one of the first young Ukrainians to write in English on Instagram, and you began to have this huge following worldwide. And was that a conscious choice, and what made you decide to do that?
That's a great question. I never wanted to become this, I guess, turn my personal page into like activism or something. Like I've I've always known that I care about a lot of issues and I care about speaking up on them on social media. But I've used my personal page before as a little blog/diary from my experience of studying and traveling abroad. And I mostly communicated in Ukrainian there because my most of the people in my audience were from Ukraine, and I thought that I could provide a unique perspective to them about telling about the opportunities to study abroad for free for young people and opportunities to travel abroad, even if you don't have like much of the money, by providing my own example and experience. But then leading up to this war breaking off fully on February 24th, I realized back in kind of like late December that there is not enough content that is very easily shareable on the social media. Like, yes, there are accounts from big news outlets like the New York Times, for example, that would make a very sophisticated, I would say, post about the war in very complicated language. And I knew that if we want to attract the attention of the international people, just like in general, like social media following, we have to speak in very simple terms and start from very basic small facts. And I decided that it's would be the best to create like a small post explaining explaining the war that has been going on the east of Ukraine for 8 years, but also how it's this constant threat of being invaded is really dawning on people, and it's causing this extreme emotional terror for already a few months. So back in January, I decided to create this little post in English because I saw that now I can provide my unique perspective as a Ukrainian who has an opportunity to use like my skills and my voice to speak to the people abroad from the other countries. And I made a post. I think it's called "What's Happening in Ukraine Right Now," and what's happening in Ukraine and around Ukraine right now. And it sort of blew off completely.
Is this the one where you talked about your anxiety at least once a day? Is this the one? I get an anxiety attack. So the post, part of the post reads, at least once a day I get an anxiety attack reading the news or just thinking about how one miserable and pathetic man can change the course of my life and thousands of people.
Yeah. I think
so
it
you
was
grew to your count. I don't know how many views that post had, but
it was huge. I expected sort of
121,000, something like that.
Yeah, it had 120,000 likes and 86,000 reshares, which is for an account like mine back in the day with 6,500 followers is just unimaginable. Like that just doesn't happen normally. And I didn't expect that. I received so many messages of support, and this blew off, and like even the media started reaching out to me. So it sort of turned my life upside down even before the war did, because I already felt the need of wow, I really hit into this void, that something was missing and people really found this useful. So I started communicating with either foreign media, but also like on my social media about this more and more. And obviously when the war broke off, it just completely took over everything I do, because I realized that that's my strengths and how I can utilize again my skills and my platform now to inform more and more people about Ukraine, and also humanize the war and tell my personal story, the story of my family, because I feel like when you read this from very official news outlets, you start sort of analyzing and treat it more as an intellectual, a piece for intellectual discussion, or maybe something statistical when you hear about that many people died and this many people were wounded. But then when you actually read very personal stories of the people that have been impacted, that's when you start empathizing more. So that's the element that I wanted to bring to my platform for the people who care and want to listen and hear and learn more about what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. I think you do that, and your writing is strong. You're just a year out of NYU's program in Abu Dhabi, and here's an example. Where you're just talking. It's like you're talking. You're picking up the phone almost to a friend. My dad called me to say that if the EU is not going to issue embargo on Russian oil and gas and announce more support today, then it means there will either be a very long war or multiple wars. He also asked me to start planning my life somewhere else. My soul is burning. So, you're telling us what your father said, and then, there's a deep reaction to it, and we hear you.
Yeah.
In this case, you said this is the attack on your grandparents' village. Yesterday, bloodthirsty bastards opened a fire from their rusty tanks straight at my crib, my motherland, the little village where my identity is rooted. And then, you shared the pictures, and so we get to hear your perspective as a Ukrainian woman, which is really wonderful. I mean, here in the Western media, you can watch a woman newscaster, on TV, and she will have 3 or 4 guests, and many of them, they will often be men, because
Obviously.
so it's rare, and people have noticed this. I mean, with Women to Follow, my mission is to amplify women's voices, so I'm acutely aware of it. But people who I don't know have said, I watched the news, and like I didn't hear any woman from Ukraine. So it's really important that we hear you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you
thank you so much for amplifying our voices and sharing.
Thank you
about what we do as well on your platform.
Thank you. Honored you can join me. And Maria, with what you're doing, what do you hope, to accomplish with this project?
Wow. When we began this project, we could never imagine what's gonna be next. And I guess right now for us, it's just a small mission to spread it as much as we can, maybe to gather together with other people. For example, I already know Yulia, and it's very nice because maybe on absolutely different situation we'd never meet, I guess. But yeah, right now I already met a lot of great people, absolutely amazing people, who I adore. They do impossible thing, and like for me, it's just a small part of all this huge work that we do together. So actually, I don't know yet, but maybe it become. Maybe a few years ago, more or less, I don't remember, but I had together with my friends, I had a small dream to make a media, explanatory media, actually, about some historical, sociological, and political context. So yeah, here we are, and it's quite weird how things are right now, because a lot of I don't know, my maybe plans there, I can do them now, but on absolutely weird, strange situation. Yeah, so maybe it's gonna be some media project, I don't know, with the same format, but maybe on different topics, because after the war, I think that Ukrainians will have a lot of different work, and it doesn't mean that after the war everything's gonna stop, because I think that we should continue spread the word about Ukraine, and maybe to create a new system of, I don't know, a new system of beliefs, a new system of some international or political relationships, I guess, because as we can see right now, the system that already exists, it doesn't work, I guess, for all the world, and especially for all this international unions. So yeah, I think that we will work on something like that. I don't know yet, but I really hope that we will be able to continue this work. And I guess I hope that it's gonna be after the victory of Ukraine on in this situation.
Yes. I
So,
think that maybe in the West, at least, when the Berlin Wall fell, there was, this sort of attention to everything going on in all the former, countries of the Soviet Union, and there is not this awareness of how Russian, imperialism affected all these countries. And
Yeah.
I think that is like being laid. We're seeing that now. And
Mhm.
even myself, when I, which is a while ago, but when I studied Russian literature and studied great poets and writers, and one of my professors was a big translator of Yevchenko, for example. But I mean, we never heard of anyone being anywhere except, everybody was called a Russian writer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
never heard
Mhm.
that somebody, was Gogol was from Ukraine, and
Yeah.
never heard of these particular, where people were from ever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're talking about that now, and it's sort of amazing to me that we're talking about that now, and this was so long ago that I learned this and never questioned at all
I mean,
what I
even
was
yeah,
hearing.
yeah, Rose, you're saying that in the time when you were studying, that was the case. But I mean, I went to NYU, which is a very liberal, big, progressive institution in the States,
Mhm.
and even I met those instances when I, as a Ukrainian, was sitting in the classroom and somebody who I know for fact comes from a different background, like from another Eastern European country, is called a Russian somebody, like Russian scientist, Russian poet, Russian writer, artist, etc., just because they came either from the Russian Empire, but or from the Soviet Union, and that
Mhm.
always deeply frustrated me. That well, I was always saying like that says that he was born in this, and it's actually right now it's Kazakhstan, or is this is like Lithuania right now, or this is Ukraine right now. You can't call him Russian, but I think the deep idea that Soviet Union, or in the same way Russian Empire, equals modern Russia, and everything that Soviet Union owned and did and occupied equals Russia, is a huge problem in the West, and I feel like it's something that the entire world, but especially institutions in the West that keep teaching that need to and learn and change. They have to check themselves, like what parts of of the regional history and culture Russia has appropriated together with those very important historic personas, because it's also a part of their colonialism and a modern day cultural kind of a strive for cultural dominance and superiority. And it's something that I think we should collectively fight and encourage all of these big institutions and academic structures to highlight in their work, especially today, and celebrate other countries and cultures in the region, Eastern Europe, specifically Slavic countries, without highlighting and centering Russia as this primary actor um, in this part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's really important, and I think it's something that I hope that people like you will make us all aware. I saw a post that NYU uh, alumni publication did about you, Julia, and you talked about
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
This appropriation and lack of that the university should be teaching this differently, and
Hmm.
why.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope that happens. I went my undergraduate education was at City University, Queens College. So
Yeah. I know.
so it was a big school.
Hmm.
um, Let me uh, ask you to both. I'm gonna well, let me ask a question. Just I'd seen an article, and I wondered if this is in Washington Post, about how many young Ukrainians who know Russian and Ukrainian, and I'm sure you know other languages, but are choosing to not speak in Russian anymore. Is that true in your case? And whereas their parents, they're still, if they did speak in Russian, they're still speaking in Russian just because they're used to it. And
Mhm.
is that true in your cases?
Maria, do you want to go first?
Okay. Actually, my parents, both of them, are Russian speakers. So yeah, since my childhood, actually, the main language of our family was Russian. But still, my grandparents, who were from western part of Ukraine, they spoke. It was a Ukrainian, but I'm not sure if you know it. But we have also this mix of Russian and Ukrainian language, which calls surzik. And it's very difficult to explain and to understand foreigners. Actually, I think it's impossible. It's some kind of a dialect, I guess. So yeah, this is our own mix, which is absolutely different in different region. So yeah, but I know both of languages as a native speaker. But right now I'm speaking more in Ukrainian, actually, not the whole time, because, I have this in my brain, I have this system already. But yeah, I'm trying to speak on Ukrainian more, and especially on work or some meeting with other people or on social media. I speak only in Ukrainian right now. And my parents, they really want to speak Ukrainian language more. They really want to do it, but it's not that easy for them, because they have this translation in their head. So yeah, I think that it's not difficult actually to get used to change the language from Russian to Ukrainian, and I know a lot of people who already did it, but I think it's a process. So yeah, I can answer like yes and no for your question. It's not the yeah.
A very nuanced answer. Thank you very much, Julia.
Yes, for me, this is an experience. This is a phenomenon of like people switching to Russian that I'm only observing. I'm not taking part of it because I always spoke Ukrainian, and in my family we also spoke like Surzhyk, that Maria explained, that a mix. But my primary language, kind of like outside of my home, was always Ukrainian. And actually, it was. I always give this kind of like a little anecdote and story why I never switched to Russian, because I felt like there was kind of when growing up, I always felt like there was some sort of uh, stigma around speaking in Ukrainian, especially before Maidan Revolution of 2014, when then it became like very cool and popular. I even like being in a summer camp surrounded by kids from the city who in Kyiv mostly spoke Russian. I felt kind of like an outsider because I was the only one communicating or one of the few communicating in Ukrainian all the time, and people would like make fun of me saying, oh, like you speak in Ukrainian, are you from a village? And I am in fact from a village, but they were saying it in very kind of like patronizing way, commenting on the fact that, oh, you must be uneducated or like less cool if you're from a village. And I felt really repulsed by that, and that's experience together with the fact that then I saw how my parents, when they, for example, they always speak like 100% of their time they speak Ukrainian, then they would go to the city and they would go to like a bank, and a cashier would speak in Russian to them, or a lady at the counter, and they would switch and start talking in Russian to her or him. And I always question, like, why do they do this if they know perfectly that the other person can understand them? And I almost felt like they also felt like speaking Russian was more cool, so that's why they switched. So at a very young age, I think around like 12 or 13, I decided that, well, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to do the opposite thing. Like, I'm not going to switch to Russian, and I'm never going to like appropriate that language as like my own, just because there is this stigma around my own language. So I always wanted to make Ukrainian language cool, which wasn't really kind of like necessary after 2014, as I said. And I have like Russian speaking friends, and I think it's a totally different and very huge discussion on, the implication whether people should switch or not. But it makes me happy to see that people use Ukrainian more, obviously. And I even sometimes feel like bad. I don't know, like obviously knowing Russian as a second language is, knowing any language is a tool, and it gives me more access to information. But I do feel like sometimes I start forgetting it, and it's really hard for me to even like write or speak in it. Like I feel way more comfortable to speaking English than Russian. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to observe, obviously, and I always support people who switch, and even if they struggle to talk or have like some difficulties with like expressing themselves, I still I want to be very supporting and say that they're doing great job.
They're fascinating, really interesting. Once you start discussing languages and what they what that means. So thank you. Maria, I'll ask you, do you have any special thoughts you'd like to close it with?
Special thoughts.
Or messages for Western audience?
Well, I just wanted to thank you that you invited us and to make our voices louder. Really, I'm really appreciate it, and especially that you are working on to make women voices louder as well. I think it's very, very important because the war, it's a lot of people think that it's just a man job, but it's not true actually. So I'm very grateful for all of this that we can discuss actually, and we can meet each other. It's very important and very supportive actually. I must say that, of course, we have a lot of difficult thing that we have to go through this time, and I think we have in the future as well. But I'm sure with all this Ukrainian people and with all this support from people all over the world, we're gonna win, and I'm sure that we will be able to, to rebuild the system, to make a new one for all of us, and we'll not forget that we should learn actually the lessons that we got from history. It's super important right now, and I think that we should be more attentive to the history, because the history is repeating. Not in the same way, of course, with a different context, but I guess it's very important to know these lessons, and to never continue them, and never make them the real life for some people again. So yeah, I think this is my advice, to be more attentive to the history, and of course. Of course, not forget that this is a real life, and that the thing that you can never imagine in your life and never believe may become true. So yeah, we should be more attentive, I guess, to the messages that we got.
Thank you so much, Maria, for joining me and sharing your wisdom. And it's the best that the young people will teach us our history. So
thank you.
Thank you. If you could just, I'm going to ask Julia to say a few words, and then we'll say a few words, and then ask you just to wait backstage for me for a minute. Okay. Julia, what do you want to leave? How do you want to leave viewers in the West, and what do you want to say?
Well, first of all, as I said, thank you so much for inviting and for creating this platform for us. I think Maria covered all of that, and I subscribe under every word of hers. I think I want to encourage people more and more to learn about Ukraine. And I know that it's really hard for a lot of the our foreign friends from any part of the world, not only like the West, quote unquote, what we call, to follow these horrific news. And I get a lot of messages on social media saying like that people are crying, people having this kind of like secondhand trauma. They themselves like feel terrible and helpless. But I want to say that there is not such a thing that called small help. Like any help is really significant when done on the large scale. So even if people cannot donate or send money or like come here on the ground to help, like obviously those who can, we're really grateful. But for those who can't, even if they can learn more about Ukraine, if they can get educated, learn maybe some basic words, language, like learn more about the cuisine, the culture, anything, like watch Ukrainian movies, read Ukrainian writers, even that is already a huge help, because it changes this perspective of Ukraine that persisted in the world for years as this sort of small Russia, which is completely patronizing and erases the entire culture and individuality of our nation. So if people can do even that, that's already a huge aid to us. And I'm grateful for those who already provided any kind of help. And I hope this conversation keeps happening and the world doesn't forget about us, because I know this war might prolong for some time. We don't know, hopefully shorter than longer. But it's incredible to see the support, and even people like you, Rose, reaching out to talk to us is a sign of a great solidarity. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Really so honored that you could join us on this special weekend. That and I know that next week is is a holiday in the Christian Orthodox Easter. But I really appreciate you so much sharing your time and your thoughts and helping to educate us. And I will continue to amplify your voices and your thoughts as you share them on social media. So thank you so much. If you just wait for me for a minute, and I'll just wrap up, and I'll be with you in a second. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Thank you to our guests, and I want to thank my sponsor, Women in Technology International, and my producer, who's done an amazing job, as always, Steffen Kaplan. And just want to mention he's producing a show with Emory University this week. A live author Q&A with Maren McKenna and a science writer, Emily Willingham. That should be terrific, and I hope people can join. So thank you so much, and I will see you at my next show. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.